the Design Convo podcast.
How's the pandemic treating you?
It's been good, man. It's been like all right. I mean, start was like the start of this year was like a little tricky and weird because I
Hmm.
myself got COVID in between, so it was
Hmm.
pretty hectic.
Okay.
But later, after recovery, things have been slow and good. So yeah, just taking it easy, man.
All right. That's great to
Yeah,
hear.
yeah, yeah,
All right. So I'll tell you the intention behind this doing this podcast. So
yeah.
I started out as designer like 2 to 3 years back, and most of the things I wanted to find online on YouTube, right? So people talked about how they create artwork and how
Yeah.
they do things, but it's hard to find people share their process, the behind the scenes, and where
True.
the things like how and where they find their vendors and how they actually build a community around them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I had a ton of questions, which I still am trying to figure out. So
Yeah,
welcome
yeah,
to the
sure.
podcast, man. How do you
Cheers,
feel
man.
about it?
Thanks for having me on board, man. I think this is my first time being on a podcast ever.
Hmm.
So that's the first one. Like, good to do first thing. Yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Talk about your background and talk about your hobbies and how you started as a designer.
Yeah, sure. I'm Yash Pradhan. I'm an illustrator, graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
I've been also working as an AR designer and doing a lot of other art direction and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Although my background is completely different, I studied like commerce with banking, and on the side, I studied like chartered accountant. So
Okay.
that was completely an entirely different process and
Mm-hmm.
education altogether. How did I get into this was when I was handed my first offer letter as a banker.
Mm-hmm.
That's when life kind of reflected few things. If I wanted to do that as a job or like forever kind of thing, that's when it kind of hits you. Oh, okay, this is getting more serious. This is not an education anymore where you're just like studying and going to colleges and exams and everything.
Mm-hmm.
This is something you'll be doing for the rest of your life. So it kind of hit me, and I had to take a step back. And my parents were supportive
Mm-hmm.
thankfully about it. So I gave myself like 2 to 3 months on trying to find things what I'm good at, and I always came back to those tiny doodles which I used to do in school or colleges. They were like very basic and rough, but I enjoyed it so much, and I felt like this is something I want to pursue and see what are the options even back then, graphic design as a career or even as an education, I was solely not aware about it because my
Mm-hmm.
head was completely into commerce and business and everything. So I did not even discover until I started looking for how to turn like these doodles into something digital artwork.
Okay.
And that's how my exploration kind of began on like curiosity of like turning these doodles into uh, just digital artwork and
Mm-hmm.
see how to take these ahead. And that's why I started like looking up tutorials on YouTube, but those were not enough to get started. Like, I mean, they were enough to get started, but not enough to make me a professional or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the other option was like doing pursuing it like properly or going to a design school and everything, which I wasn't aware when I was getting started. So I just thought I'll just teach myself whatever I can possibly and see how things go. And
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to look up a lot of artists, how they began, how much education matters and how much doesn't. Because at that moment I had like not wasted, but occupied like 4 to 5 years of my life into banking and business. So going clearly in a different direction was like a whole new experience. So I discovered Skillshare back then.
Okay.
So I
Mm-hmm.
was very happy about Skillshare because they had so much free tutorials and like professionally there were like so many other advices and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I kind of learned the tools
Mm-hmm.
or at least what things do. Because on YouTube, you just follow a tutorial and you end up just making it as it is. But like,
Mm-hmm.
if someone asks me to make something else, I'll probably need like another tutorial for it. So it's better to
Okay.
learn the tools rather than like tutorials or like
Hmm.
how the process is. Because process can be followed, but it can't be learned, is what I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think Skillshare was the kickstart for me to learn the tools or like which was back then Adobe Illustrator because I fell in love with vectors and minimalism and everything. And yeah, I love the scalability how the vector provides. So
Hmm.
Illustrator from the beginning was my go-to tool, and that's where I explored the whole designing and illustration aspect of it, and that's pretty much where it started.
Okay. You're a vector
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, vector guy.
All right. I'm a rest of guy. I
Oh,
deal with a
okay,
lot of brushes and I'm on the opposite pole.
okay.
What are your hobbies, man? So, what do you do when you're not creating art?
I mean, my hobbies also like somewhere revolve around art, but not design in perspective, but like
Hmm.
maybe taking photos, photography, or like doing something physical was, which was just going on a run. It's not like a cliche hobby, but I enjoyed like going for walks and run and skateboarding at the time too, because we
Hmm.
had like lesser population in Bombay, so
Okay.
skating on the street was like good back then, not so
Hmm.
safe right now. So
Hmm.
skateboarding was something I picked up earlier in my teenage years. So that's something I still enjoy. And like cooking now and then,
Okay.
that's something kind of gives me peace or like inspires me. And just like going to gigs, I think music is one of my biggest
Hmm.
inspiration and also an hobby. I say because I love just like discovering new audio experiences, which kind of indirectly inspires my work as well.
How does a day in your life look like? So,
Let us say a very much a morning person.
hmm.
So it'll just be me waking up, having my breakfast, watching some videos or something like that, and
Hmm.
on a work kind of day, it'll be like me getting started on emails and like checking those things and reverting and getting started on work, checking out with like
Okay.
agencies and all that thing. So it's
Hmm.
mostly like a mundane thing, or if on a regular day when I'm not working, it's just like again me being a morning person or like trying to find what's the next thing I want to do. It could be
Hmm.
either me going to galleries or me just like going socializing and trying to have that balance, work-life balance kind of. Especially me as a freelance, I have that opportunity where I don't have to work every day. But when I
Hmm.
work, it's like constantly, even through weekends. But when I don't have to, I can not work on weekdays too.
All right. Talking about freelancing. So now I have an
Yeah,
interesting question. So,
yeah,
you know, uh, I know that it's kind of hard to make a living as a freelancer.
yeah, yeah,
So
of course.
why a freelancer and why not work in house for an agency or a company? What made you take
Yeah.
the choice?
So I mean, when I got started, I mean, of course, I did not have any experience or any work to even display, or neither did I have like a design education which I can show to get a job opportunity.
Hmm.
So one of my biggest inspiration back then, and still is somewhat, was Beeple. And he has been creating artworks on every day for like over 11 to 12 years right now. Back
Hmm.
then, he celebrated like 5 years of Beeple and everything. And that kind of inspired me to get started since
Hmm.
I was learning tools, and I started a project called 365 Days, which is like a poster a day.
Hmm.
So that's where I kickstarted my work and started doing all these posters and like artwork each day throughout for like 4 to 5 months at the beginning. And on the
Hmm.
sixth month, since I was sharing all these illustrations and designs on Instagram,
Hmm.
a couple of studios kind of started getting in touch with me, asking me what's my background and if I'll be interested in a job opportunity.
Hmm.
So the first thing I got was a full-time job at a studio called Wolves,
Hmm.
which is they work on like different music production and music visuals which you probably see on LEDs and like huge electronic dance music concerts and everything. So
Yeah.
that was basically my first ever job per se. So I did not initiate with like freelancing or anything, but as I obviously started with a job.
Okay.
And yeah, so freelancing kind of came in later when I felt I had enough room, and also financially I got myself stable enough to support for next, at least back then, next 2, 3 months, because like
Mm-hmm.
freelancing is such a risk in itself. Like you, if you don't have that backup, or if you aren't financially stable, I wouldn't recommend just like going freelance.
Mm-hmm.
So freelance wasn't like an option. It was more of a choice which came after me working on different studios and agencies and getting myself like financially stable. And that's when I wanted to move forward as an individual when I had my own style and I was confident enough to put it out there as an individual, as the Yash Pradhan. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how
Talking about your
freelancing kind
style,
of
man,
did.
I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of your, the style of artworks you create. I've been watching you since you started creating those posters, and
Oh,
how
amazing.
you, yeah, and I absolutely love the works which you created for 36 Days of Type. And
Thank you.
yeah, it's been crazy, knowing you as a person online, of course, and it's
Yeah.
happy to interact with you as a person.
I'm
That's
glad to hear that. It kind of feels like a full circle for hearing from someone who has seen me grown online or like
Mhm.
and then having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
That's surreal. Yeah.
All right. I mean, it astonishes me, in fact, by the fact that you have built a community behind you that actually supports
Yeah.
you, nurture you. And, when you get to see people collaborate with brands like, Adidas. And so
Yeah.
how did you actually notice that you were developing a style when you uh, started creating those posters?
I mean, while I was starting uh, creating those posters, the goal wasn't building or creating a style, but I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to teach myself tools and consistency. Because
Mm-hmm.
consistency is like pretty much the key for every kind of profession wherever you get in. I feel
Yeah.
like as long as you're consistent, you'll definitely be successful in
Mm.
whatever profession you go in.
Okay.
So those posters kind of helped me build a lot of basics that I was lacking by not going to a design school or anything. So
Mm-hmm.
consistency, color theory, and all those basics I was trying to build throughout the posters. And
Okay.
style is something I kind of discovered like later in my career where I was doing personal projects and where I had the opportunity and where I had the freedom of creating different surreal elements. And a lot of these kind of were inspired through music and everything. So that's where like I started creating small elements which led to like another one and it kind of flew interdimensionally and it was very surreal experience to like showcase and it felt like it's very
Mm-hmm.
much me and it's something not very out there. It felt like pretty much design having its own personality, which is basically a design stylist.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I discovered like my style or like
How the hell did you, create a community of your own where people get to enjoy your stuff? Did you actually intentionally do that, or it just happened? It was a process.
I think it was more or less of a process because when it comes to community, this is more of a virtual community for me, and I'm not a person who intentionally enjoys Instagram as a app or any other apps there online. I
Okay.
just saw it as a source of me putting my artwork without having people judge me or anything for my work, but I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to put it out there and just see what kind of response I get, either good or bad. But community kind of came through these consistent work where I was putting and people started interacting or enjoying, or even people from music kind of started relating because a lot of the elements kind of resonated with them also. They enjoyed those things, and that's how like these small things from design kind of started attracting more and more people and started kind of building like a small community. It's
Okay.
still surreal to say there's like a community out there because
Okay.
in real life, if you see like it's just like me in my room sitting alone, but if I had like even 10 people around me, that's like so much. But like imagining like all these people online supporting your work, it's crazy and it's surreal.
To what extent do you think the community plays a role in supporting you as an artist in making a living by having an online store? So I could notice that you have an online store where you sell merchandise like
Yeah,
t-shirts and
yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, for me, when it comes to like exhibition, pop-ups, or even online shops,
Mm-hmm.
I do not personally, at least at this point, see it as like a source or like a financial source for me to
Mm-hmm.
support myself. But it's more about like giving back or like people having the opportunity to have your artwork in
Mm-hmm.
a format which is not just like or a digital or like something you scroll by or just something you save on your
Mm-hmm.
Instagram feed and everything like that, but something more physical and something more personal. So that's what my goal was, even going through different exhibitions that happens in Bombay. It's just like me interacting and meeting all these amazing people in real life who've been following me
Mm-hmm.
for like months, days, or years. It's just like more about the interaction and how it definitely helps professionally also because a lot of these people from the communities are professional and designers, and you never know who you are engaging next
Mm-hmm.
with. So
Yeah.
it definitely helps you thrive more in this profession. So having a community and the right community who kind of supports and not just like virtual ghost and everything. You just have those numbers and not just like numbers, but actual people there to support you, even if there is like 10 people rather than having just like 100 followers who don't even interact or they are just there. So
Yeah.
having more like active community is like very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small world after all. All
It
right.
could just be your next client or it could be your next project or anything. Yeah.
Okay. How the hell do you find clients, or do they find you?
I've been blessed where I can say most of the clients have discovered my work either through word of mouth or either through my website.
Mm-hmm.
I believe most of my work kind of started at least for past 2 to 3 years. It has been through my website itself. Because having a website also is so important where you can just put out your work. Even though right now a lot of well, many creators they see Instagram as a portfolio to showcase their artwork, but I still believe uh, having a website kind of helps you and it's a good way to segregate like what kind of work you want to put because on Instagram you may tend to put a lot of your personal artworks which potentially you may not want to work on if you
Mm-hmm.
want to get a certain kind of work. So it's better to have a website where you can segregate things and like have those kind of work which you want to get.
Yeah.
So I think that's that.
Yeah. And we also have the chances where the algorithm might screw up when you
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
use Instagram.
definitely, definitely. Instagram algorithm and like it's a lot. Yeah,
Let's talk about collaborations.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how do things happen, and how do they find you? Is it mostly via Instagram or word of mouth, or yeah.
At least for Adidas itself, I think I was lucky enough to bump one of the head associates of Adidas on a
Mm-hmm.
gig that was promoted by Adidas.
Mm-hmm.
So I think another way of portraying it would be like just meeting people in real life. It could be
Mm-hmm.
like a really great potential, especially like going to gigs or like any kind of events that because Adidas as a brand is something is very personal to me as well because I love the brand itself. It's
Yeah.
so very engaging, youthful, and it stands for a lot of things that I reflect as well. So it kind of was a lucky opportunity where I was just there at a gig which
The
was just
Design Convo
held by
Podcast.
Adidas, and just like meeting the right person at the right time, kind of. So it
Yeah.
was a more physical than something that virtually happened. Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to creating different kinds of work, right? So you collaborate with different brands. uh, I could see that you actually design print and packaging stuff. You also do
Yeah.
posters,
Yeah.
and you do digital stuff, and now you're into
Yeah.
AR. I was astonished by the virtual, I don't know, the exhibition which you put on Instagram, where you could
Oh
just
yeah.
walk in
Oh
and see
yeah.
your artworks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in this profession, I feel like as much you enjoy like doing just digital art, there is like so much you can do and so much to expand. And I love like learning new things and getting on to the next thing. And
Hmm.
back then, when I was introduced to Spark AR, which is by Facebook, they had like beta open source kind of thing for creators to just check out the softwares and create like filters and things like that.
Hmm.
And while people were creating face filters and everything, I wanted to step in and see the world of AR, because AR was still back then done, but it was mostly done through apps and like professional apps, and not in a way where it can be a small AR filter itself, because it
Hmm.
comes with so much restriction. Even if I tell you right now, all that was done at like 4 MB of file, it's like surreal to see, because AR filters has like restrictions where it needs to be accessible by every phone, every person. So yeah, it was crazy for me to just like get started. And when I was creating that virtual exhibition, it was during pandemic, and of course
Hmm.
people couldn't step out. And personally, me, I love going to museums and spending time, or just checking out like different art from other people. So I thought it'll just be like a surreal experience if people could just like stay at home and walk into an exhibition of mine
Hmm.
and get to check different work and explore and play around with it. And
Okay.
I was like, yeah, I was like very excited about that thought itself and getting started, because
Okay.
even back then there was no such tutorials or anything for Spark AR where
Hmm.
I could learn. Okay, I can like create these things here and there. So I think learning tool back then again kind of helped me explore that possibility, and that turned into like that AR exhibition.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah,
now that we are all stepping into the metaverse and things
yeah,
like that, where everything's going to be virtual. So,
yeah.
how do you think, how prepared do you think we are as a design community to step into the metaverse? There are really just a handful of designers whom I know personally are into the AR and VR space. And when it comes to designing for metaverse, how do you think the approach would change, or how do you think the designers have to adapt?
I think for designers as a community, it'll be easier to step into the metaverse, because
Hmm.
regardless whether we know or not, we already are into the metaverse of like creating
Hmm.
digital work and everything. So we have somewhat stepped in without us knowing we are already in a metaverse. So I don't think it'll be like some drastic transition in at least in the process of a creator,
Hmm.
but maybe knowing tools and knowing things like uh, how you can create like designs that could be embedded or coded in the real meta universe.
Hmm.
That's like those are the small transition, or those are the small things that I think uh, creators would want to learn stepping into it. But if not, I still think that we already have like our one foot already into the metaverse.
Have you gotten started with NFTs, or how do you plan to
Yeah.
do that?
No, funny enough, I dropped my first NFT back in Jan 2021, when
Okay.
NFT was just getting started or like booming,
Hmm.
because there was a lot of noise with people coming into NFTs and everything. And this is the first time when Foundation was started. Foundation,
Hmm.
the platform which curates and like
Yeah.
lets creators mint NFTs. Just
Hmm.
got started in like January 2021, and the first week of Feb 2021, I got my first NFT. I called it like Minty Kit because it was all around like a kitten, and it was kind of a little homage to my own pet.
Hmm.
And then it was crazy to see it quickly got auctioned off, and thankfully it was bidded by the creator of Nyan Cat. So
Okay.
yeah, so that was like another crazy thing where the community kind of comes through.
Hmm.
So it was like a already pretty much like a surreal experience and having that NFT, and then I followed by like few couple of months, I dropped my second NFT. Then again, like unfortunately, COVID kind of hit me really
Yeah.
bad, so it kind of went down, and I started going back to my own digital work rather than like working towards NFT because NFT is such an amazing space, but you have to dedicate like certain amount of time and like investment because it's not just like you putting up and minting your artwork. You have to interact, engage with like
Hmm.
certain community and get like certain collectors engaged through your artwork and everything. So it's like an complete entire process. So I did not get back to it due to
Hmm.
a lot of reasons. But I'm soon planning to probably drop another NFT anytime soon.
All
But
right.
yeah,
That's
that's about it for NFTs and like metaverses.
that's really exciting, man. People didn't think the bubble would last, but it's going to be here for some time, I guess. So, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
my first NFT was a cat as well. So I illustrated
Oh,
a cat.
amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So yeah, yeah, and I think I named it the Empyrean Feline or something, where I
Okay,
illustrated a cat with a a face that showcases attitude or something. I don't know. I just
okay,
wanted to
okay.
know what's happening and how to actually go through the process of creating a crypto wallet and doing
Yeah, yeah.
transactions, putting your artwork as NFT. So I just dropped
Exactly.
Bitcoin on Foundation and it just lies there.
Oh, okay. I mean that's amazing though. Like I feel like these kind of small curiosity of like you trying to know like crypto wallet or like minting your first NFT is like it's amazing to see like all these different creators stepping into new thing. And I think it's gonna be helpful and not just a bubble, but it'll be there for a good long term as long as you're like completely invested into it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
That's crazy. I was just scrolling through your Instagram feed. In
yeah,
fact, yesterday, and
yeah,
I came across a post where you pressed upon the fact that creative individuals should write a contract with the collaborators or the clients whom we work with.
of course, of course.
So, do you actually write up a contract with every single client you work with, and how important
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
think is it for creative individuals to actually do that?
I mean it's more like a necessity and it should be norm to work and regardless of the client, I feel like that should
Hmm.
be like a small uh, necessity that every creator should follow because it's gonna help you so much either even in short period or longer period having all these terms and guidelines will just not safeguard your client but also yourself and it will just like help you uh, do so many things, not just like get paid, like because that was my title about like contracts are important and not just for you
Hmm.
to get paid and everything, but it
Yeah.
helps you save right your rights to your artwork and rights to how much right does the clients have and like all these kind of small norms and even when it comes to
Hmm.
like revisions and all that like because a lot of people like or designers make it a thing where okay there are I see memes and everything on internet when designers share, oh, clients are sending like one feedback, then it turns into like 100 feedback. These
Yeah.
contracts are going to help you for that, where you can just restrict yourself and tell them, okay, this is the number of revision you provide. And
Hmm.
it kind of gives like a clarity and it also gives like a transparency to the client and backs yourself up as well, where you don't have to keep going back and forth and just like make it hard. It could be like
Yeah.
a smallest project you have ever done where it could be like you making a small icon, or it could be you making a logo for any client.
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel like you should have a contract, even if it's your friend, if it's your family. I still feel like contracts are such a necessity, and
Yeah.
it definitely should be a norm.
Let's talk about creative blocks. Yes. So
Yeah,
I could already, I think I have the answer. So since you have mentioned that you have the, you go to music shows and,
yeah, yeah.
exhibitions, and do you want to talk specifically about overcoming creative blocks,
Yeah,
especially for budding
I
artists?
mean, for me, I completely have a different take. I even had like a small illustration series called Block, where
Mm-hmm.
I did not believe there is such a thing as creative block, because I feel like there is so much inspiration. I don't think any individual can be creatively blocked.
Mm-hmm.
What I believe is there could be exertions, and like not have that motivation to do physically, but having that
Mm-hmm.
creative block is something super impossible to have in some individual, because there is like so much inspiration, or and especially in the real world rather than the virtual world, you can be inspired by something entirely different genre of people, genre of profession. It could be their ethics, it could be their color palette. There is so
Mm-hmm.
much to draw from. So
Yeah.
creative block is something I don't believe in, but like exertion, that's true. That can happen. It's just like you just need to take some time for yourself and like get back to that fresh palette or like fresh eyes of like, so you can just
Yeah.
get back and get started on like new work.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's simply that people are overthinking on the fact that they are getting a block.
I mean, not just like stop and like force yourself, but like
Mm-hmm.
take some time off. I mean, it could creative block is what something you might think it's a creative block. It could be just like your body asking you to take some time for yourself and like give yourself some enough mental and physical space to get
Yeah.
back to into that profession and doing that nail things over and over again. So yeah, creative blocks are basically just blocks for yourself to take your time and get back with like fresh pair of eyes, because there
All
is so
right.
much inspiration to draw from.
It's actually nice to, see you thrive as a freelance artist. And,
Yeah,
how do you plan, in general, we have this mentality, especially in India, that it's okay to just stick to a job or do the same thing over and over again to, be financially independent.
yeah,
So it's just day jobs for everyone, most of them at
yeah,
least. And only a handful of people actually take the leap of faith to, try out freelancing full time and
yeah,
do
yeah,
things.
yeah.
So what do you think should be, how do you think people should plan, income stability from different streams, or how do you do it?
I mean, it totally depends on like people, and people come from so much different background. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
freelance itself, like even when I started as a freelance, I
Mm-hmm.
did not took a leap of faith. I of course did like a full time job and secured myself like enough saving that will make me survive for like next couple of months, rather than me just
Mm-hmm.
like going and taking the risk of like freelancing and see even if I get any projects or if I can upload some people. So I think
Mm-hmm.
having that financial stability and the background you come from, if it's worth taking that risk, or if you're like 100% confident in your own artwork and everything, and you know it's gonna work out, I think then just like take that leap of faith and like go ahead and get freelancing, get started with it, do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, like you can just like stick to your job or like do freelancing on the weekends and see how things work out and have that balance going on. So you're not like just like taking a complete risk, but it's more like gives you a balance of like working full
Okay.
time but also doing freelancing before you
Okay.
entirely jump into freelancing, because freelancing is such a risk taking career where you never know what's gonna happen, what's not gonna work out. Even if you get a client, what if they kind of back out because things don't work out from their end? So there are so many possibilities which are like great, but there are so many possibilities that can just like go bad too. So as long as you're financially stable and you have that confidence in your own artwork and own art style, I think just like go for it.
So I personally feel that it's all the content that consume and goes into your head, and it's like a tap where you when you open it, it comes out as a different piece of artwork.
Yeah.
So, what kind of content or what are the shows or things or books that you generally consume, and what do you want to suggest people?
I mean, I would suggest, and I've been suggesting, just like consume something that's more physical, that's more real, that's completely not in your profession.
Okay.
Consume something that's not graphic design or illustration. Consume completely different. Look
Hmm.
at your local shops and people and draw inspiration from them. Because consciously or subconsciously, if you consume a lot of like virtual artwork or like things that are already existing, you might end up doing something similar to that without even knowing you're already doing something from
Yeah.
that. And that's how a lot of artists kind of end up forging or like doing something similar. And finding that individuality is so important. Where if you really want to stand out, I feel like you need to bring something that solely is engraved to you or solely something that you see in the real life and that's now you're putting it digitally out there.
Yeah.
So finding or like getting a source which doesn't exist in this digital world is the best place to start. See, like things like when pandemic hits and you can't really go out, I think uh, I don't know how to portray it, but like when it comes to like people with disabilities,
Hmm.
when they are disabled, like let's say a person who is deaf, they have like incredible other senses, which
Yeah.
it could be their powerful eyes or like powerful sense of smell and everything. So I try to take that same belief and put myself in that position where if something is restricting you, try to increase the other sense of like noticing things around you within your own room or like within that small window of your own bedroom that you can see and start noticing things you weren't noticing and draw inspiration from that because it's not always possible to go out and like travel and do things like that, especially when we are in the middle of time. Yeah.
And that is a crazy perspective. I have never thought in about it in such a way, but that's really
Yeah.
insightful. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're really young, right? I read somewhere
Yeah,
that you're
yeah.
just 26 right now. And I'm
Yeah, I
26,
just
right? So,
27th this month. Yeah, I
okay.
just turned
Oh,
27 this month.
all
Yeah.
right, man. Belated birthday wishes, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I
All
appreciate it.
right. You said that you actually moved from doing banking and commerce to
Yeah,
design.
yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the transition should have been, a bit difficult for you.
Yeah,
So
of course.
I'm also sure that there are a ton of people out there. In fact, the story was the same for me. If you could go back, probably to 2 to 3 years back, right, to meet
Yeah,
the younger self of you,
yeah.
and what are the things you might have done differently, all through this time, and if at all, if you don't want to change anything, what would be a piece of advice which you would give your younger self?
I mean, to be honest, I'm happy where I am. So I don't know thinking or like changing anything
Mm-hmm.
would have done anything better or worse for me. So
Mm-hmm.
even it's pretty much like having a portal gun and thinking if I could just go back to my past self and done something differently, I probably would stick to the same route of what I have done so far because that's the reason of me going through all those things is something where I am at right now. Because even I'm unsure that if I went to like a proper design school and learned like professionally design, maybe I would I have the still same hunger that I had as a non-designer or like a
Mm-hmm.
non-design student of
Mm-hmm.
learning new things and grasping because I came from an entirely different background. So I don't
Okay.
think I would change anything or tell my younger self to change anything. Advice would be like probably just be consistent. Because there have been times where I wasn't consistent enough, where I felt like okay, I have like I was taking probably too easy. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's okay to take easy also, but it's always like good to be consistent and be a little more productive. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's just like two basic advice of like being consistency and like being good or like productive enough.
That is amazing,
Yeah,
man. That's really
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah,
So when I personally had this thought, I had like a list of things which I would go back and tell my younger self to change about himself. But yeah,
yeah,
it's amazing to who knows, if you have probably gone through design school, it might have brought you and you might have become a banker. So
yeah,
things
yeah.
work in a weird way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm huge fan of like comics and all that. So even in like Marvel and Marvel universe, they have like all this multi-dimensional universes going on where
Yeah,
different individuals have like different paths. So I'm kind of content with my own path that I took. So I
yeah.
don't think like changing that one thing also could have like a completely different output. So
Mhm.
I'd probably stick to what I've done so far.
You were just mentioning about productivity, right? So being
Yeah.
consistent and being productive. And I read somewhere that the attention span of humans have gone down to less than 4 seconds now. It used to be like around 7 to 8 seconds back, like 50 years back, and
Okay.
that's because of all the distractions we have, right? Considering you are working as a freelance designer,
Mhm.
you might sometimes have to work on different projects at the same time simultaneously.
Of course.
So how do you switch minds between projects, and how do you be productive about dealing with different clients and different people, different emails and different artworks? So how do you do that?
I mean, I still don't think I'm an expert in like multitasking or like dealing with like different clients. I
Hmm.
do work on like different projects at the same time, but I make sure either I'm like completely starting fresh with a new project on a new day, or making sure like if I'm working on two projects, I make like enough break. It could be the lunch break where my mind is completely diverted into something else and it's completely like a new start. So having that
Hmm.
new beginning or like new start kind of makes it easier to multitask and like deal with different clients. Yeah,
So
I'm
is there
glad.
something that you want to press on, to the audience who are listening to the podcast? Or so it can
Yeah,
be anything, like the general things about industry, or it can be specific, like if they're wanting to starting out as an illustrator.
yeah. I mean, like again, I still want to go back and emphasize on like having contracts is gonna be so helpful regardless where you are at your point in your career. You could be starting or you could be in midway or like experienced enough and still not using contracts. So contracts is
Hmm.
like something gonna help you so much without you knowing that piece of paper is gonna help you bound a lot of things, not just rights, getting paid and everything like I said. And
Okay.
I think that's one of the most important. And like other than that, I think just like be you and try to show the world like how you as a person sees the world, because there are so many of us, there are so many designers in the world. They are doing a lot of amazing work, and all these amazing artists have like a common theme of like their own individuality, their own style, because they are showing or like showcasing design in a way where only they are able to see and not just like it's already been done and dusted in the industry. So
Yeah.
even when industry wants to stay safe and play safe around where they know okay this kind of design works out, take that risk of like doing something completely different which is solely inclined towards you, because that's gonna pay off as an individual in the long run rather than doing something which already exists and staying safe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I often see your stories, and I'm happy to see that you're going to different places, music events, and exhibitions and pop-up stores where you sell your stuff,
Yeah.
right? So most of the times, I notice that you carry a small sling bag or pouch.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What do you actually carry in that?
Oh, dude, I carry like so many things. I mean, it looks like a small fanny pack, but I carry a lot of
Okay.
things. It contains like tiny bottle because I like to stay hydrated, and
Hmm.
it's just like so important. Uh, then I have my wallet. I have a lot of times I carry my own stickers because I like to stick my stickers here and there or like
Hmm.
spaces.
Okay.
And it has like basic necessities like chargers and sanitizer and all those things. So it's like a small go-to bag to carry, and like it's convenient rather than carrying like a whole backpack which is on your back and which
Okay.
makes you feel like okay, you're going to school or college. It's just like a nice,
All right.
convenient
All
way of
right.
like carrying things. Yeah,
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for sharing that. And
yeah, of
I
course.
was happy to see the eye everywhere, like literally as
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
virtual sticker, and it was really nice to see people try that out and share
yeah,
things,
yeah,
express.
of course.
That is the end of the list of questions I had in mind for you.
I mean,
Uh,
that sounds good.
this has been really amazing, man. So the
Yeah,
past
yeah,
hour didn't
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like an hour actually. All right.
Exactly. I mean,
Thank you
I
very much
enjoyed it
for
thoroughly too.
joining us as a guest. I really appreciate
Of
that, man.
course, of course, of course.
All right.
Thanks again for having me on board. I love your cap, man. It's pretty sick.
Thank you so much, man. I really
Cheers, man.
appreciate that.